Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Doc Hamels, and welcome to Destination Chautauqua. This series is going to be just like we talked about on my show at Chautauqua Sunrise. We're going to be interviewing candidates who are running for political office here in Chautauqua County. And we are doing this so that you may learn more about the candidates and see them in person. This is not a call-in, but it is live. So please, if you miss it, or have to leave somewhere during the show, they're going to rebroadcast throughout the week. Okay? So, with that, we're going to get started right off the bat, and I want to welcome to the interview Mrs. Jeri-Ann Simora, and welcome.
Thank you.
May I call you Jeri?
Absolutely.
All right, Jeri. Jeri, I understand that you are running for District 8 within the Chautauqua County Legislature.
I am.
And I believe we have a map that indicates that area. Can we pop that up, Jeff? There we go. So, I believe that it's both sides of Chautauqua Lake, or is it just one side?
I am both sides of Chautauqua Lake. Yep.
Well, that's kind of interesting. So you're over in Bemis Point, and then you come across over into the Stowe area there.
Right.
And that's District 8. Now, my understanding is Mr. Chagnon, Pierre Chagnon, was invited for an interview and declined to come in. So I just want that for the record, and that he is the incumbent, and you would be running for his position. That's correct?
Is correct. Yep.
Okay, Jeri. So, obviously, I'm going to start out with the typical question is, who are you and why are you running for county legislature?
Well, I am Jeri Simora. Actually, I am a stay-at-home mom now.
Mm-hmm.
I was a former public school teacher in Pennsylvania. We moved here about 5 years ago. And I'm choosing to run for Chautauqua legislature because of the fact that I think local politics really is the most important political office that you can hold, and one of the most important things that you can vote for. The fact that our voter turnout for local elections is so poor is tragic, because those are the elections that really impact the constituents the most. We moved to Chautauqua Lake 5 years ago by choice, and we have been blessed by everything we have found here, every opportunity that my children have had. We moved from Pennsylvania, where my husband is a psychiatrist, and he practices medicine still in that area. And when we moved up here, we moved primarily because we wanted to have a house on the lake. And when we got up here, our kids said, "Can we look at the public school, Mom?" Because at that point, they were in private school. And I said, "All right, well, you've never been to public school before." And in all honesty, I love the uniforms of the private school. That's a big benefit for me. So we went up to Chautauqua Lake, to the Chautauqua Lake Central School. They fell in love with it immediately. Right. And the benefits that we have found here, the education that my kids have received, is hands down better than anything we ever expected to receive. It's strange because I did teach in the public school. I finished when we moved up here. I was teaching alternative education, and I taught 7th through 12th English. And so and basically it was a rural school district. So my little tiny school represented, if kids were removed from the regular school, they came to Bridgeport Academy. So that was where I was teaching primarily.
How many years did you teach?
Oh, I was there for 12 years. So and then I substitute taught while my kids were little, and my husband was in medical school. So we did a lot of and the substituting, I have to tell you, is great when you have small kids. You work when you
yes
can.
Or no, when I want to.
That's exactly he was in medical school, so there was mostly yeses. So there was very little room for no's. But that was why we moved up here. And everything we have found since we've been here, the opportunities, the friendships, the entertainment, everything that goes on around.
So you're now a resident in Bemis Point?
No, we live in Asheville. So we are just on the other side of the bridge.
Just down the road then?
Yes. And actually, when we bought our house, we thought we lived in Stowe. We signed papers that said Stowe.
Welcome to Chautauqua County.
Thank you very much.
Years ago, I lived in, let's see, what was it? West Ellicott. I was in the Southwestern School District, and I paid taxes, I think it was in Faulkner, or something crazy like that. It was because of the way they overlap and things like that.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Well,
cool.
well, that was, when we moved here, we thought our kids would be going to Bemis Point,
Mm-hmm.
because we were right across the lake. And
Right.
no, we were surprised to find.
Okay, so far, I'm hearing that you moved from Pennsylvania, you were a teacher, and you now live in Asheville, and somehow or another, someone decided that they were going to ask you to run for county legislator, or did you say one morning, oh, I woke up and say, that seems like a cool idea, I think I'll do that?
Well, actually, as everything happened, the previous election bothered me. And not for various reasons, but mostly because half of the electorate did not turn out
Okay,
to vote
low
in the
turnout.
2016 election. It was horrifying to think that half of the country decided to just forego the election. And so I had been involved in politics when I came out of college, and worked on Tom Ridge's gubernatorial candidacy in 1994 when he ran for governor in Pennsylvania. And have always been actively involved in politics, always been actively voting. Never did I ever think that I shouldn't vote. And when I saw that, and I saw the fact that now people are complaining about the candidates that were running, that was always the big thing. I can't vote for either of the candidates. They're all terrible, and they're all, they're all. And the other thing I hear is all politicians are crooks. And I thought, that's not true.
That's not true.
Public servants come honestly, to do the best they can.
That's true.
No one really goes into public service to get rich, because, I mean, the ones that do, thankfully, are,
Right.
caught and taken care of
Right.
and removed but I said that really, I wanted to show my friends and my family, and you know what, if you want to make a difference, you got to put yourself out there.
Okay.
And whether you win or whether you don't, everyone should experience running for office. I think it's a great experience. I think it's fun. You meet great people. You listen to issues. You hear all kinds of sides of all kinds of opinions, and it's healthy. I mean, it's a great opportunity.
You know what's sad is when you said that only 50% of the people voted, and you see these countries where women just got the right to drive.
Right.
Or I had Michelle Henry on here not too long ago. She's our county historian, and was saying it wasn't until 1917 that women could vote in Chautauqua County. And it's like, I just can't even imagine not voting, and yet 50% of the people don't vote. And that's something that we fought wars over. We wanted our independence, and I digress. But the point is to your point, is that that's sad.
And I'll take on that, because my grandmother actually was a suffragette.
Was she
She was
really?
born my grandfather was born in 1897. My grandmother was born in 1906.
Mm-hmm.
Marched with her. She was a member of the Women's
She must have been
Temperance
quite young.
Society. Yeah. Oh yeah. I said, and her mother, and they marched, and and she drilled that in. She had I had two sisters.
So you had no choice in this. You had to do this.
My mother and my grandmother were, and my father too, and they were insistent. And I will confess, the one time I forgot to mail in my ballot, my absentee ballot. It was a county commissioner's race in McKean County, where we were originally from. And my candidate lost by 1 vote. And I remember that because I walked into my grandmother's living room, and she was very upset. And she goes, well, we all tried. And she looked at me and she goes, you didn't mail in your ballot, did you? And she just saw it on my face. And I said, I'll never do it again. I'll never do it again. And I tell my kids that all the time.
One vote, one
vote.
person.
There really is that story.
I've had school budgets go down because of 1 vote.
One vote, yes.
So people that are out there listening right now, you do make a difference,
do.
especially in local issues. Okay, so I'll ask you this question now. You're relatively new to the county. 5 years is like nothing. What's your 30,000 foot in altitude look down at the county? How do you see this county?
Well, again, I'm coming in here comparing it to the county that I grew up in,
Sure.
and the county that is kind of a dying county at this point. The same people have been in office for a long time. There's not a lot of fresh ideas coming in there, and we are still holding on to a lot of things in the past. So for us, coming to Chautauqua County and New York State was kind of like this great utopia, because one, we didn't have a local police force in our town. We had volunteer ambulance drivers, but we didn't have EMTs or paramedics staffing our fire department. So if you had a heart attack and the ambulance came, you couldn't transport until the flight car came from the Bradford Hospital, which to our town is about a 20-minute drive. It's
You're in
scary.
trouble, yeah.
And yes, my taxes for 2 acres of property were $1,200, but my kids, if they wanted to attend the public school, they were losing all kinds of funding. The opportunities were not there. The classes were not there. When we left, they were reduced to teaching physics online because they couldn't hire the physics teacher any longer. And those are the rural districts because they depend on those property taxes.
So coming to Chautauqua County, you saw it totally different.
Yeah, our property taxes were much more.
But
the benefits I get from it, I will not debate. I said, people can complain about property taxes, and they do, and they have rights to it. You know, that's your money, that you want to see it spent right. I'm like, but you don't really appreciate it until you realize what you don't have when you pay for it.
So I'll put you on the spot because you brought up taxation. It's one of the topics that we told you we were talking about.
Right.
So how do you see taxes in Chautauqua County from your perspective? And it's your opinion. I understand that. So do you think they're fair, too high, too low, just right?
Well, for my family, we're fine.
Okay.
We can afford our property taxes. My husband is a psychiatrist. He makes a great living. We can afford it. But he wasn't always a psychiatrist.
Right.
So in the years past, I know what that means when your taxes go up. And it's when you're on a fixed income and you are not planning for that tax hike. It's very difficult to swallow, and it's very difficult to pay, and it's very scary. So there is a point when you have to look at other methods, and you can't just continue to tax people. And people around the lake, if you live on the lake, we live just right off of the lake, so we get all the benefits of the lake.
A little cheaper, too.
We are at 50 feet off that lake, so our property taxes are not quite as bad as my neighbors, and most of my neighbors are out of town. To have out
Different
of
circumstances.
Right. They still complain about their taxes, but they also have the option, to sell those houses. We also have friends that live on the lake year-round who are retired, who love it, who would never consider leaving. But yeah, it would be a burden.
Okay, so far as the countywide taxation or levels of taxes, do you have any suggestions for the people who are listening that you would bring to the county legislature if you were elected?
Well, I do think you've got to grow the tax base, and that there's no substitute for that. And when you have opportunities that you do in Chautauqua County, because half of the county aligns around 90, and the other half, 86, runs through. You have great transportation opportunities around here that you can really court a lot of businesses. And obviously, we need a lot of new jobs. And we need jobs that are going to bring people back into the community because it's a great place to live.
Okay, so how do you do that?
And that's what I think it is. We have a lot of things to offer. We do have a lot of programs and places that people can come in and develop for.
So capitalize on the resources that are here.
Absolutely. We need to have shovel-ready projects. We need to be prepared. So when you do get that phone call, you can say, absolutely, here we go.
Choices.
This is right here.
Want this one, this one, or this one.
That's absolutely right. We can't cut ourselves out of, cut the budgets of every district or every office that we have running and expect to produce some really quality resources and quality services. But we can find jobs and future taxpayers that are going to continue with those budgets and and enable people to provide the services that are desperately needed in county government.
Okay. Let's switch topics, shall we?
Okay.
All right. So I think we've got a pretty good read on where you're coming from on taxes and that you appreciate what we do offer here. The number one thing that seems to be on people's lips in the county, not from outside the county right now, is the opioid situation, where we've got drugs, people are dying, and we see a rash of folks, I say mid to late 20s, that are doing overdoses.
You do, yeah.
On heroin.
I have a unique perspective on it because my husband is right in the thick of that. He is a child psychiatrist, so he is in. He's a medical director for Beacon Light Behavioral Systems, which is right across in Warren County and in McKean County, and he deals with a lot of kids who are in placement because of drug issues, because either with their parents or themselves, and those issues, when you can get kids into residential, they can be addressed because they are in a safe haven. On the weekends, he works at the Bradford Hospital, in which he does the detox and the rehab program, and he has a tremendous amount of patients from Jamestown and from Chautauqua County, and from Buffalo, and from Cattaraugus County. New York State does provide the resources for people to get the rehab and the detox and the treatment that they need. You can't. We seem to have a problem in this country, in this county, and all over, as you treat these offenders like they're criminals. And it is an addiction, and it is an illness. And there are people that are more likely to fall victim to it, and there are others that know that that's definitely not the way.
So you feel
to
these
go.
people are maybe a little more susceptible, personality?
Absolutely. I mean, you have in the circumstances that you find yourselves in. If you don't have jobs to go to, kids get bored. I mean, there's great resources, and also people don't necessarily always like to talk to their children about those things. We kind of nail our kids. We have 4 of them, and they will. From the time they were little, we have drilled that into their heads. We have talked about these issues with them. We have talked about the dangers of them. We've asked them point blank if they have friends that are involved in that. We go through, I've gone through their rooms, children make decisions, and they're not always the best decisions. And they're not always aware of the consequences, and the long-term consequences.
Right.
You start involving yourselves with opioids, and you don't realize how quickly that addiction can spiral out of control. And teenagers do have access to it easily. When we lived in Pennsylvania, we cared for my grandparents. My grandmother had spinal stenosis, and she was in her 90s. There was no fix for that except oxycodone, and she did take that, and she actually said to the doctor, I don't know that I want to take this. I'm afraid I'm going to become addicted. And he said to her, Helen, you will become addicted, but that's okay.
Control.
Because this is the only thing that is going to help you keep this pain under control. Those drugs were locked up. They were under, we knew where they were. We knew how many she had. We controlled the prescriptions. And when she passed away, we also disposed of those.
Right.
And that's really another thing that in the county that we really need to have readily available in every community are disposal sites. You can do them in pharmacies. You can do that. Pharmacists are happy to take back. A lot of pharmacists are happy to take, I shouldn't say all of them, but a lot of them are happy to take back those drugs and dispose of them for you. The hospital will dispose of those drugs for you. Doctors' offices will take those back and dispose of them for you. People don't realize how important it is to dispose of them, not to flush them down the toilet, but to literally take them back and let the proper authorities take care of those.
So what I'm hearing is that there's treatment, that one of the causations is readily available medication when people are using it and they don't realize that maybe the kids are dipping into their stash. But what I'm reading are not 14-year-olds, but I'm reading respected 28, 30-year-olds that have kids, that have jobs. And
that are addicted to it because it's been given to them, because they have because they have an injury. And that's also work-related injuries. I mean, you know, construction workers, plumbers, people who work tough jobs, tough positions, they are susceptible to injuries. We're all susceptible to injuries.
So as a county legislator, then what I like the idea of the disposal sites, but is there something else you could do at the county level on this problem?
I think there are so many things, and honestly, I think county and local governments are the ones that are going to have to address this.
Right,
because
it's local
it's
issue.
not going to be addressed by the federal government. It's not. It's just not going to be. They're going to. The funding has to be there for education. First of all, doctors have to have the time to sit with their patients in order to address those issues with them when they
So more
when
than
they write
here's the
these
prescription,
Absolutely.
but
My husband he doesn't prescribe those drugs, and he will, but he does treat them once they're in the hospital if they are going through withdrawals. And then he has the opportunity to sit down with them and say, this is what the situation is. This is how you got into this situation. Here's some alternatives. If you can offer you know, physical therapy or any other things to correct pain management or pain issues,
so finding
but also
alternatives to the opiates.
Right, manage the pain medications. There are just times when you just can't. You need to understand that your patient can only have you know, one refill or
So then you would support the county doing educational programming? I mean, what
the county has to do educational program.
Okay.
I mean, they have to be responsible to do that. You also need to be, the county needs to be actively recruiting physicians into this area. It is very difficult to get physicians into rural areas, and I have said this before, it's not going to be a matter of access to insurance or to hospitals. It's going to be a matter of access to doctors. And the reason that we have physicians who cannot sit and educate their patients about the dangers of opioid abuse is because they usually have about 5 to 7 minutes with each patient before the next one comes. They are overloaded, they are overworked, and they don't have the time. But there's no one coming in to fill the void. The county and the local government have a unique opportunity for recruitment because in Chautauqua County, in rural counties, loan repayment programs are available. And if you graduate from medical school, on the average, I will say, when we finished medical school, we had $250,000 worth of student loans. It was overwhelming. My husband practices in a rural area in which every year he practices, those loans are forgiven. We have the same opportunity to do that here. We just have to recruit. We cannot rely on the hospital, on WCA or UPMC to fill that void. We have to be in the business of looking.
So what you're saying is
people.
You got to build infrastructure, a medical infrastructure of staffing to help the
You really
problem.
do.
And you feel that we don't have that at this time.
I think we're in a dangerous position because we are closing facilities. WCA was bought by UPMC, which I think is great, and it's going to keep it going for a while. But I will say, coming from UPMC is a business. It's a for-profit institution. If WCA isn't turning a profit, UPMC will not think twice about closing that down. And in rural hospitals are always hanging by a thread. The Bradford Hospital merged with the Olean General Hospital in order to keep themselves afloat. The Warren Hospital is always just breaking even. Hospitals are always just breaking even. We have to find a way to make sure that they are staffed, that there are patients that are happy, that are satisfied, that it is being utilized, and the services are being provided.
So from the county legislator point of view, what would you do?
Well, I do think actively engaging WCA and UPMC and making sure that they understand that those services are vital, and that at every year you re-engage them.
Would you include Westfield Memorial? Would you include
Brooks Memorial,
Brooks?
absolutely,
The
because
others.
those are Westfield is becoming well, and it is. It's just an emergency room service almost now. I mean, they have maybe 1 or 2 beds available to their folks. Brooks is obviously in a different situation. It's a bigger hospital. It's vital to the community. Dunkirk's a long way from Jamestown. I have had friends who said, well, our first baby was born in Westfield, and then we had to go into Jamestown because the Westfield got rid of the obstetrics, and we no longer have that available. And I got to tell you, that affects the community. That affects the community in terms of people wanting to move into the community, in terms of doctors coming into the community. I
So
mean,
again, you support a strong medical
They
infrastructure,
have
including
to.
doctors, the
clinics
hospitals.
have to be there. The
Right.
hospitals have to be there. You can't be afraid to set up Suboxone clinics and things like that in order to address opioid issues, because those are vital. Those they keep people moving forward and off the opioid train. All those,
Okay. We're down to a minute and a half.
we are. You said I was going to go fast.
Are there other things that you would like people to know that you feel that you're going to bring to the position if elected?
I bring to the position as former teacher. I appreciate the school districts. I appreciate what it means to teach, to run budgets, to find the funds to provide all the services that are necessary. More than that, I run a household in which we've had to do that too. I know, I laugh when we laugh about when we were in medical school, and there was no money, and you had to squeeze whatever you could out of wherever you could find it. And I understand that, and I understand what families are going through. I understand what it means when the electric bill comes in and it's more than what you have, when the tax bill comes in and it's more than what you have available. And I also enjoy listening to people and listening to their issues. And I would love to bring their voices to the county legislature, because I don't think a lot of them feel like they are being heard. I love the idea of being their voice.
Okay. Well, Mrs. Jeri-Ann Simora, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for
We've got to
having me.
wrap things up here. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Destination Chautauqua. I'm Doc Hamels, and I've had the opportunity to talk with Jeri, and she is running for the county legislator position for District 8, which includes Ellery and North Harmonies and Bemis Point Village. Is that true?
That is correct.
All right, and so please get out there and vote, and keep that in mind. We're going to continue our series in another little bit here, so I'll be back. So stay tuned for 1 o'clock. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.